Okay, good morning. Today is Sunday, June 28th, 2026. And we will go ahead and get started as we usually do for this Love Church session by just taking some breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth and in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as we breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth, we invite our mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. Let your toes relax and your feet relax. Knees relax and your hips relax. Breathing in and out, allow your hands to relax and your elbows to relax, stomach to relax, and your chest to relax, throat to relax, and your face to relax, and your mind, body, and energy. Relax, relax. Relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends that come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe, so we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to heal and harmonize. All right, so today we'll read from How to Connect from Thich Nhat Hanh, page 48, Listening to Ourselves. Mindfulness of listening and speaking can help us restore communication. We begin by coming home to ourselves and practicing mere recognition, which means listening to whatever thoughts and emotions rise up without judging them, and then letting them pass without holding on to them. We can learn to listen to our own suffering. We don't have to try to get away from ourselves or cover up unpleasant or uncomfortable feelings. We are there for ourselves, to understand ourselves, our suffering, and our difficulties, and to transform. Before we can listen to another person, we need to spend time listening to ourselves. Just sit with that for a moment and listen to ourselves and how that lands within our body. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about relationships, and not just romantic relationships, because a lot of times that's what people focus on when they hear the word relationship. They think romantic love relationships. And in all the little 3-card pulls that I did this week, I have that subscription service where you could get 3 personalized cards. And then I also do a universal message. And this concept of love, of unconditional love, of absolute universal love and connection came up. And so I thought we would get into it a little bit. I'm also doing a course soon, and I'm not advertising it, but just so you know, like, this concept is in the air, is really coming forward in a lot of ways. And I am doing a little class of relationship of self coming up. So you can keep your eyes on that if this message speaks to you. I'm not trying to advertise, but it just is an awareness and a listening that this sort of energy is really circling around in a lot of different ways right now. And so when we can tune into those universal truths and then bring them into our personal truth and then do that work, we get the support of the universal energy as well as our own interior energy, just to kind of wrap that all around. So the things that I want to talk about, the first one being relationships are much bigger than romance. And while a lot of times, as coupling creatures, we bring romance into it when we think of relationship, the most important relationship does begin with the self. How we speak to ourselves in our head or in our voice, how we connect in those ways with ourselves, how we see ourselves, all of those things, that energy that's created from those things will help determine, either support or detract from, our relationships in all other aspects of life, whether it's familial or work relationships or friendships or romance or any of those things. We set the tone in how we speak to ourselves. So that's the first thing that I want to really bring forward. And if you've worked with me at all or listened to any of the podcasts, I do believe when the one is strengthened, the sum is strengthened. And so starting with your relationship with self is very important. And that means all of ourselves, our mind, our body, our emotions, our energy, our soul self, our authentic self, the ego, we really want to understand how we are in co-creation in relationship with all the different aspects. And instead of judging, controlling, condemning, we know that doesn't work in relationships. So it doesn't work in relationship with ourself. And so we recognize, how do we come together in a co-creation process with all the aspects of ourselves and create healthy relationship? Because healthy relationships don't happen by accident. They happen intentionally. And just as I often say, and you've probably heard me say, change happens, growth is optional. And so that's where the intentional part comes in. So what we're going to talk about today is what I consider the ABCs of healthy connection or healthy relationship. And so the A stands for attentiveness. The B stands for boundaries or balance. And the C stands for communication. And these are the foundations of the relationship with yourself, that when we have them in those spaces, we can broaden them out into spaces with others. And so I thought that would be a good thing to bring forward in this week that seems to have a lot of relationship energy working around it. And so, when we talk about attentiveness, my rule here is you can't fix what you won't see. And so attentiveness allows us to bring awareness. Attentiveness or awareness can also go for A, bring awareness into the space where we get to see ourselves, if we're working with a relationship with ourselves first, cleanly and clearly without judgment. When we work on the awareness practice, it's an observation, not an absorption. We are just noticing where I am, what is my makeup, what is tuning in. We also know that attention goes where our energy goes, where our attention flows. And so recognizing that when we're attentive and the critic is who is in charge, that's the lead voice, then we're probably going to be picking ourselves apart, and we'll find more things to pick because energy goes where our attention flows. But if we can create a balanced awareness of attentiveness, these are my strengths, these might be some weaknesses, this is the direction I feel called into, this is how I tune in this way. And we just create a flow process of realizing both shadow and light exists within us. And I can be aware and honor both for the place that they're holding or the job that they're fulfilling, the tool that they are in my world. And then that allows us to go, oh, here's my strengths. How do I lift them up? Here might be some weaknesses. How do I not get so focused on them, but also allow myself to work on what I can work on as I'm called to work on it? And then in that attentiveness, it allows us to tune in. We tune in with this understanding, noticing our thoughts, noticing our emotions, noticing our energy, our intuitions. The 3-5s are really good here. Go find that video and start your 3-5s if you're not working on them. But the connection there is recognizing, if we can think of a friendship, if a friend is talking and I'm distracted, I'm on my phone, I'm not paying attention, they don't feel cared and loved for, and loved. They might feel like whatever's on the phone is more important. We're creating a distance with the distraction. And the same thing is true within ourselves. If we're constantly doing, and we aren't being, then there's a distance. And so recognizing attentiveness is a very important thing. Bringing awareness, paying attention, holding space for yourself allows for you to tune in. And it doesn't mean that checking out, like every once in a while, we just kind of need to watch a silly show or relax into kind of, not having a job in our brain to do, but that shouldn't be in replacement for paying attention to ourselves. It should be like that, sweet piece of chocolate after a very healthy dinner sort of feeling. And so that's where the relationship with self begins, is in tuning in attentively and paying attention to the self before we change anything, before we decide what's right or wrong, before we realize, does it fit or is it baggy or is it too tight? Like, we just go, oh, let me just be attentive and aware of myself and where I am in the world. And then that allows us to tune in into the spaces that create that possibility for growth, because we can't fix what we don't see. And just seeing it, witnessing it, being present with it, attentive, first A. And then the second space of building healthy relationship with yourself as well as with others is boundaries. And boundaries to me equals balance. And the reason why I say that, I believe that boundaries are clear communication on how you would like to be loved. And so it is an invitation into a safe container on how to connect. And energetically, we know like a safe container can have transformation happening inside of it, but it's also is in that space of sacred safeness and security, that groundingness, the recognizing that, these are the things that are allowed to transform in this space. I also teach a whole class on energetic boundaries. And one of the things I remind people in that course is, if you're creating reactionary boundaries, someone did something I didn't like, so therefore, here is the boundary. Don't do that again. That's technically a consequence. It's not a boundary. Boundaries should start with the definition of what healthy is. And because we're starting with ourselves, because that's where the healthiest, our core healthy center installed first. And so we have to know what healthy is, what are the ingredients of healthy relationship overall, generic relationships start there. And if we can identify that, then we can start building and saying, oh, I have these ingredients present. I need these ingredients. Here's how I get them. And it allows us to understand like where our healthy core is. And why is that important? Well, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transmuted. And when we get into collective relationship with others, then it's easier, I guess I'll say, for energy to be transmuted. We combined energies in whatever way, and the spiritual property is 1 + 1 = 3. So my energy and your energy and where they combine is the third. But oftentimes, because we're human, we get kind of eclipsed in connection and relationship. And so that can mean, oh, well, here's my energy and here's their energy. And then the relationship energy covers me up. I lose myself in relationship. And that happens often when we don't have a clear understanding of the starting point. What is healthy relationship? So then we know through that boundary process, I'm inviting you into healthy relationship. Will you join me? Not, I'm going to go get you and bring you in. Not, I'm going to stand here on my side with my arms crossed, waiting for you to show me, but more an invitation into the healthy, sacred space of relationship and inviting in. But we have to start with ourselves, which says, do I know within myself what are my wants and needs? What are my deal breakers? What are my truths? How, what's the range of connection that feels healthy to me? Because the other thing we often do is believe that there's this 50-50 line, and that doesn't take that spiritual property of 1 + 1 = 3 into account. It creates this is where the line where we touch, which is really almost impossible for humans to 100% of the time have 50-50 connection. So we know this is the least I'm willing to work with. This is the most that I can give without abandoning my boundaries. Can you invite you in? Because then your most is their least and their least is your most. And that creates that healthy choice. And in that, we have to know it within ourselves. If I don't identify what that range is, then I'm making reactionary boundaries. I describe it in this way, and you may have heard me say it before, but it's like baking a cake. We have a list of ingredients and the way we put the cake together. And if we have that, if we can identify that, we wouldn't go to the cupboard and go, well, I don't need rice. I don't need beans. I don't want onions. We would go, oh, here's my list. Here's what loving me feels healthy. That's, this is what I feel healthy in giving and receiving. Like, here's what I have, here's what I need. And it allows for you to work in that way to create workable spaces. So you're not constantly working on deal breakers or what you don't want or don't like, because we can go all the way back to A, and energy goes where our attention flows. And so if I'm constantly seeing what I don't like, I will constantly see more of what I don't like. It's red car theory. I didn't see a lot of red cars until I got a red car. And then as soon as I get a red car, there are red cars everywhere. Where there were more red cars on the road? No. Was my awareness focused on red because I had a red car? Yes. And that's how things work as far as that energy goes, where our attention flows, because we're going to hone in like little beacons on the things that we focus on. So use that in your power. Use it for positive thought, for upliftingness, for healthy connection with yourself, and then spilling into healthy connection with others. It also allows for co-creation in a lot of spaces, because if we're not the only one carrying the load, if I'm inviting someone into this co-creative space of this is what healthy is to me. I might have my 11 ingredients of a healthy relationship, and they have their 11, and then 7 of them match exactly. And then we know, like, oh, well, these other 4 we both have to work on with and for each other in that way. And then we expand because we'll realize that there are other options for healthy that we can work on instead of sorting through connecting to the unhealthy. But how we work on boundaries within ourselves, what that looks like in our world for us, is knowing those spaces, identifying and understanding the healthy container so you don't cheat on yourself and go outside of that to kind of force something, because we know anything forced will have to be fixed. And then communication. And this is important with ourselves as much as it is with our exterior relationships, no matter what kind of relationship it is. Communication is love made visible. It is that trusting, caring connection that says, this is how I feel. This is where I am. This is what I need. It's a vulnerability that allows for us to speak our truth instead of assuming. And, one of my hardest lessons was expectation always leads to disappointment. And then a dear friend on one of the podcasts, Anita, she said, well, I think unspoken expectation always leads to disappointment. And I was like, haha, that is a very, very wise perception shift in that space. And so when we think about how many times we've all done it, I've done it, we've all done it, where we just assume that someone understands where we are, what we need, why we want it, or what our goals are. We just just assume that they're there. And energetically, because that's what I speak, energetically, assumption energy is a negative neutral. And neutral energy is not positive nor negative. What makes energy positive or negative is emotional impression. And neutral energy can hold you as a plateau very well, like a foundation. But if you're trying to create growth, then you need positive neutral, a fertilized soil to plant in. Negative neutral is lack thereof. And so when we think of that, if I don't speak my needs, I'm not telling the universe what they are. I'm not telling the person I'm talking to. I'm not telling myself. I'm just assuming, which is a void energy. The moment that I put some passion into it, which is a higher vibrational energy, especially if it's love passion, then it allows for the energetic impressions to start being culminated. I'm giving it energy. I'm speaking life into it, giving it that energy so it can be uplifted. So when we speak into what our needs are, it's not only about saying, hey, this is what I need. It's about uplifting it energetically into a higher vibration so it can be received. When I assume, that is a void energy, and therefore the other person even being able to latch on to it and connect to it is less, because it doesn't have a strong energetic impression. Assumption has a weak energetic impression. So the more we speak our truths, it's why affirmations work. It's why, verbal spell work, even if it's in your head, verbal spell, I guess that wouldn't be verbal. That'd be, anyway, just putting it into a framework of communication is very important. And then the other thing that I truly believe is that when we put something forward to ourselves, to others, it wraps us back to awareness. Truth brings choice. If I say, I don't ever want to eat another pizza in my life, and my friend loves pizza, at least we know where we're starting. We know that that's not going to be something that we put together in the world. If I go, oh, I know my friend loves pizza, so I don't want to say I don't like it. I'm just going to go and get a salad. And then I do that over and over again. And this is a very simple example, but like I'm not, first of all, trusting them with my truth and understanding that they won't condemn me for my truth, just as I am not condemning them for their truth. But from there, we both get to make different choices of what we're going to do from that point forward. But if I hold it within myself, then they're likely to just continue to invite me to places I don't want to go. And that can create a distance. And we can look at that within ourselves, how often we're like, I should not let this get to me. I should not do this thing, instead of going like, right now, that's getting to me. And like, what do I do with that getting to me? Like, how do I heal that within myself? We get to see it clearly. And so communication within ourselves first. What are my healthy, ingredients of a relationship? What are learned behaviors that I believe about relationship? What are experiences that shape how I feel about relationship? If we have that inner communication first, not in a shaking finger judgmental way, but in a just see clearly way, then that communication helps us bring it out into our relationships and say, this is who I am. This is how I feel. This is where I am, not in a like, love it or leave it sort of way, but in a way of like, how does this help us co-create connection? How does this allow us to see each other clearly with, true eyes and honest heart and understanding and attentiveness? And that honest communication allows us to, keep clean, like, to me, in the mental emotional spaces and the thoughts and emotions spaces, honest, clean, clear communication is the sage of communication. It just clears the space. It allows for it to get to that neutral space. And then what goes after that, what energy I put after that, is up to me. So instead of thinking of it as like, we've all heard someone be like, I'm just an honest person, and really they're mean. Or like I'm a people pleaser, and really they tell people what they want to hear instead of the truth. Like, if we can get some clarity, because we all have a little of that within us, if we could just start cultivating a little bit more like neutral, positive, clear communication, so those choices can come forward in a bigger way, and starting with ourselves and then broadening that out. Because remember, we're in this time of magnetization to keep the energy flow in the right space. And magnetization is about alignment. And alignment is when our thoughts and our actions, our choices, our decisions, our values, our purpose, thumbs up, says the Zoom. and all of that connects in a way that keeps us aligned, which keeps us magnetized. And so that's an important part of recognizing those things. So each one of those, and there's more, obviously we're only 30-minute talk here, but recognizing if we can tune in to these ABCs with ourselves, and then start allowing that ripple to go out into spaces. And there might be some relationships it's really easy to do. It might be some places in your world you're already an expert at this, but there might also be places where that's your Achilles heel. I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, so I'm not having clear communication, or I don't want to know the answer to that question, so I'm not going to look. And that is creating the opposition to the alignment and creating a challenge within the system, and then making it harder to stay in that center focus. So that's what I wanted to bring forward. I hope that helps you reframe, first and foremost, your relationship with yourself, and then how you interact in the world in different ways. And just like our own personal soul is different from any soul on the planet, so are others. So we're just asking for a little bit more attentiveness to the self, and then in greater relationship, recognize respecting boundaries and balance within yourself and then within your connections, and then healthy communication with yourself and then with others in a greater space. And I hope that just tuning into this allows you to shift some of the ways that you're energetically connecting with yourself and others. So now we'll work with the art of energy. It is a beautiful co-creation that happened with Amy Gordon, the abstract artist, and myself. It comes with a little book and then cards that have different abstract art and Amy's poems on them, as well as then color-coded with the chakra system cards that allow for you to tune into an awareness, and then a greater in-depth in the book of an action that you can take to tune into the awareness. So this is for the collective whole, and we will tune into that, and then individual card pulls for people. So this is card number 25, and 25 works with the energy of compassion in the heart center. And we're kind of embracing that. Compassion is like empathy when we can feel another's fragility in relation to our own shadows equally. We recognize our shared humanity. Bring awareness to a situation that eludes your compassion. Oh, this is a good one. So then you go to the book, and the book has the awareness and then an energy action that goes with it, as well as the image of the card. The awareness, the energy of compassion in the heart chakra. Awareness. Bring awareness to a situation that eludes your compassion. Is compassion only attached to relatable suffering? Can you easily have compassion for a situation you have never been in compared to one you personally suffered from deeply? And the energy action. Choose a situation in life that eludes your compassion. This can be a person with whom you have used judgment, or someone you believe brought this on himself or herself. Now try to imagine yourself in their situation. Try to avoid logic like, I can never get in that situation because I would use better choices. And instead, move into how they must feel being there. By removing this logic judgment, we can identify the feeling behind even a bad choice and have a more complete sense of compassion. This is a tough practice, especially when we feel very divided in the world. And we could say, that person made their bed, now they have to lay in it. And recognizing compassion, like awareness, doesn't necessarily mean we condone the choices, decisions, and actions. But compassion says, well, yeah, they may have made that choice, but I bet it feels hard for them, or I bet that they're suffering like me. This person has suffered. And so recognizing, we don't have to agree to exhibit empathy or compassion that must feel tough or hard. And it's a tricky place to fall into, and not an easy practice. So I would start small with maybe a small situation where you're having a hard time with compassion or empathy, and then move into the bigger ones that may be a little tougher to work on. All right. So I hope that this message landed to the people who needed to hear it, and that you are all well, and that you're in good spirits, and that you feel blessed, and that you feel whole, and that you always be your soul.